Hello, I'm Nikita Sellers, and welcome to the next in our town legal interview series, in which we interview people in the planning and development world. This week, we are in the head of Nick Kilby, the CEO and co-founder of Cratus Communications. Hi, Nick.
Hello.
I'll just tell everyone a bit more about your background, if that's okay. So a bit about Cratus. So Cratus supports private and public sector organisations with public communications, private and public sector organisations with their advisory support, community engagement, public affairs, public relations, and I'm sure I've missed something, so I'll just say much more. And Nick, please add in anything at the end. Before founding Cratus in 2009, you were a local councillor at the Royal Borough of Kingston upon Thames for 4 years. And before that, Nick had an interesting career in the entertainment industry, stage managing, general managing, managing entertainment buildings, and also much more. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that passion in this interview. So welcome, Nick, and thank you again for agreeing to take part in this series.
Oh, my pleasure, Nikita.
Thank you. So I think we'll fire away with the questions, if right. So question one isn't a particularly easy one, I don't imagine, when I'm sure you've got quite a few to choose from, but what has been your proudest achievement in your career so far?
Well, when I was thinking about this, there's two. One is relevant to my work today, and one is from my past. When I was running a theatre, I was told that a very famous playwright called John Osborne had written a sequel to his even more famous play called Look Back in Anger, and that every time they tried to cast it, it would all fall apart. And they'd had Peter O'Toole was going to play Jimmy Porter, and which would have been wonderful. And then there was a big fight with John Osborne. John Osborne was known as the angry old man of British theatre. And eventually, the play got passed around various theatres, and it landed on my desk. And I decided to go and meet John Osborne. And he wasn't an angry old man. He was a lovely man. And he lived in Shropshire with his wonderful wife. And I just sat and listened. And I said, well, who do you think should play Jimmy Porter? He said, well, someone who's got an intelligent brain. And he was quite offhand about actors. And I said, well, I quite like the idea of Peter Egan. And he said, fine. And they met. And I said to Peter Egan, I said, Peter, don't do me one favour. Don't tell John that there's 20 minutes that can be cut out of this play. Just leave it. Enjoy it. Enjoy meeting one of the greatest legends in British theatre. And Peter didn't tell John that he thought there were 20 minutes. And what I cottoned on was every actor had turned around to this great playwright and said, well, the play's a bit too long. We should cut 20 minutes out, or 30 minutes. And John phoned me from his hotel room and said, I've just met Peter Egan. He'll be fantastic, Nick. Absolutely brilliant. Hire him straight away. And he said, and when did you realise that I was tired of actors telling me to cut my work before they'd even read it? And Peter Egan went on to play the part. And it was the most wonderful experience I ever had in the theatre. I worked with an absolute theatrical legend. The play was absolutely stunning. The Arts Council loved me. They gave me more money for the Thorndike Theatre in Leatherhead. The play ran about 5 weeks in the West End. No one liked it because they didn't like being told what he had to tell them. So there you go. That one is, I'm very, 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 very proud of that. And it's in the sort of history books. The other one was the Beaverbrook Golf Club in Leatherhead. It's the site of Lord Beaverbrook's country house. So very famous historical, lots of links to modern day media tycoons. When you find out all the history of Lord Beaverbrook, you start thinking of Maxwell and Murdoch and all the shenanigans that they have. And he was heavily political. So in the study, he brokered the first coalition government in the 1920s, I think it was. And he was incredible, used to pay Winston Churchill £5 to write an article in the Express so that Churchill could pay off his debts. And no one wanted this house to be converted to a hotel. And it was a real fight. It was an absolute fight. And on the estate, one property had been sold many years earlier to an artist, a very, very talented artist, and his wife, who had trained as an environmental lawyer. And the architect had accidentally put the red line on the initial drawings in the wrong place and taken part of her garden off. So the first time I met this particular lady was when she was furious that we had cut her garden in half, and not a great start. She, in fact, became an amazingly capable campaigner against us, and we had to do everything. She was unbelievable. She went to every parish council in the area to complain and give speeches. She had street stalls. We had to work so hard to project the positive story of bringing this big country house into active life, and it would employ people locally, all sorts of things. Anyway, we won the planning permission by the vote of one vote against officers' recommendations. People like me always love to win planning applications against the officers' recommendations. And then this lady got her friends together and jr'd us, and we had to go all the way to the High Court, and we worked with Kit Kat, and we went, they took us all the way to the Supreme Court in the end, and the Supreme Court said, no, this isn't for us, and the journey stopped. What is really ironic and has always made me laugh is that I went for lunch there some years ago, and it's beautiful, it's very successful, the hotel is stunning, and the maitre d' said, Mr. Kilby, I've been asked by the owners just to let you know, the lady that you had an interesting time campaigning with, she's visited 5 times now, Mr. Kilby, and on the last occasion she said Leatherhead's always needed somewhere like this. So it just made me laugh that our biggest opponent turned out to be someone who really enjoys using it today, and that just made me chuckle as I got in the car and drove off and thought, what a fantastic place, and people can now go and visit it and see it. So Cherkley Court is what its original name is, Beaverbrook is what it's called now, and from a planning point of view, it brought out the best in us. We had to communicate a story, and it links really. Theatre is about telling stories. Our job is to tell a community a story.
Yeah, brilliant contributions to Leatherhead there, making me want to go and visit.
Stories about Leatherhead, because Deja Vu was produced in Leatherhead and the Beaverbrook said,
yeah, brilliant, thank you. It was great to hear about those. So next question,
yes.
I'll pop up a photo on the screen of your younger self, which you kindly shared with us. And the next question.
Oh yes, that leaves me. Yeah.
Another one, a very cool one with you with John Mills and Rosemary Harris.
Yeah.
So looking at your younger self there, what career lesson would you pass back to your younger self?
I think that when I was thinking about this is you want to rush through life. You want to get to the end a bit too fast, I think sometimes. You want to be the greatest barrister, maybe the greatest lawyer ever. And actually the journey is much more fun than sometimes getting to the end too quickly. But one of the things that really has struck me is learning that some of your elders are trying to influence you based on their own insecurities. Oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't try that. No, you don't want to do that. And I think it's to understand, to listen to people and try to not just take on face value what the advice is, but to try and just get a feel for why they're of that view. And I think that, yeah, looking back when I was doing that, wisdom was a way of influencing people, perhaps to fit other people's thoughts, rather than listening and saying, if you want to go and do that, Nick, go and do it. Yeah, so I think listening to other people and understanding that everyone's got something to offer, but it's not always a positive, and you need to think it through before you take it at face value.
Brilliant. Thank you.
It's very harsh.
Great advice. So next question. You've had as we've already heard, you've had a very interesting and varied career. Did the career path choose you, as many people often say, or did you choose it?
Well, look, I've had, I think, 3 careers. Stage management, absolutely fantastic. It feels like a million years ago. The only evidence that I ever did it is posters on the top of my landing. Is about the last way of remembering. Then I worked in the entertainment industry of running venues, which I loved, and it was great. That's where I learned to really get to be a manager of companies. And now here I am running a company that's helping people communicate what they are wanting to achieve in their own worlds and their own businesses. I didn't choose this. I fell into it through the council and discovering that the cinema industry, there wasn't a space for me. All my friends had nabbed the best jobs, and we were there was too many of us at the same age looking for the same job. The theatre industry, I opened an arts complex in East London called Rich Mix. It was a wonderful achievement. I'm very proud of it. I'm incredibly proud of it artistically now, because it's got to where we always hoped it would be. But again, the arts is it's a young person's game, and I suddenly discovered at 40 that I was on the old person's list, and again, too many of my generation looking for too few jobs. So I was looking for something new that would interest me, and politics and communications and doing what I do now in running consultations or being an advocate for people and their businesses sort of fitted in, ironically. And although I never trained as an actor, and I promise you I never trained as an actor, I really enjoyed that storytelling and that producing the story. So in a strange way, I haven't changed job. I am taking someone else's work, like John Osborne's, his script, and I'm creating the scenery and the setting and the presentation. I'm getting actors in to play the role, getting great lawyers in from town legal to help. And we're telling a story, and we're saying to the audience, love us. And put your hands up if you can and vote for us, and that'd be great. So I've sort of fell into it. Someone said to me after I got elected, do you fancy campaigning every day of the week if you really enjoy it? I said, yeah, why not? My first job was the mega mosque in Newham, God help me. Probably the wrong phrase, but it was a journey that I never dreamt I would go on, and I was dealing with press inquiries from all over the world, all about this mega mosque in East London, and that was my first ever planning application that I was involved with.
Yeah, no, brilliant. You're definitely selling planning very well. Maybe you can sell us something else. Your favorite place is the next question, and I think there's lots of people looking for staycations and other holidays, so hope you might be able to.
Well, only last night I was looking at Rightmoves and I thought, my God, everyone has bought every available property in Southwold. There's nothing we can even look at. I would love to live in Southwold.
Well, we did get a picture up, and it does look pretty amazing.
Yeah, what have you got?
There we go.
Yeah, look, isn't that just beautiful?
Yeah.
And I go there every October for a week, and for me, I love the sea. The ability to look out to sea, it doesn't bore me. It's just, you can just switch off, and I think that rightly or wrongly, I throw my all into what I do, and for the last 12 years I've thrown myself into this company called Cratus, and switching off is really hard. Reading a book and looking out to sea and walking by the sea, about the 2 things that I can think of that I can actually find some tranquility. And Southwold is a lovely, it's like many towns, but it has wonderful food shops. It has, importantly, a bookshop. It has lovely cafes. It has the pier. And so, yeah, that's where I'd like to live. The biggest problem I've got is it's not the house. You see those beach huts?
Yeah.
Some of those are 60 to 100,000.
No, I was literally just about to say, well, if you can't find yourself a property, you might need to get planning permission for some more beach huts.
Well, you know, I think it's the beach hut that I might have to buy the beach hut before I buy the house.
Oh.
But just to sit there in my dotage with a coffee and a cup of tea and a book and just read it, to me, sort of, I'm hoping that I live long enough to retire and to live that life.
Yeah, well, it looks lovely. And speaking of your other love, clearly, what book would you choose to have with you? What's your favourite book?
Oh, well, you see, that was such a nightmare. It's a bit like, what's your favourite film? We just recently did that in the company, and choose 10 films, impossible. The book that I think inspired me and opened my eyes to the power of literature is actually a very thin book. It's a very modest book, and it's Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now, I'm dyslexic, so to learn to read and to have the confidence to read has been a big issue in my life. And I hope that generations today suffering from dyslexia have far better support at school. You know, I was just in the dunces reading class, and no one explained to me that my struggle with reading was something that existed. I wasn't just stupid. There was a condition, and no one really named it until I was at drama school. And I learned at drama school, because you prompt actors when they lose their line. How terrifying to be dyslexic and do that. Well, I've done it many times. So I had to learn the scripts virtually off by heart, so that I was only using the script in front of me as a guide. I knew the script as well as the actors. But Animal Farm, we had to read out in class, so I was terrified of my turn. And the head teacher, or head of English, made us read it, and we read it purely as a fantasy story about animals that talk and people who are in charge. And we read it, and it was totally delightful. It was a fantastic read. And then he said, bring the book back next week and we'll start all over again, but this time I will read it to you and I'll explain it to you. And he did, and he sat there and he totally loved it all, and he told us all about the Soviet Union and communism and Marxism and all the things, and all pigs are equal, and Snowball, and all of the things that stood for. And I just loved that power of literature and the metaphors and everything else. It was just a joy. And so that will always be my favourite book.
It was, yeah, it's a great choice. It was actually quite good fun trying to find a cover of the book, because I thought it really shows you how many different ways you can read it. Yeah. I thought this one was quite particularly funny next to this one, just completely different. And yeah, so completely.
I have to also tell you that book also helped me when I needed money very desperately. I found a first edition in an auction room in Bedford where my parents lived. And no one in the auction room had any clue what this little book was really, apart from it was George Orwell. And it was in mint condition. And I bought it for £1 with 30 other books. And I just took the one book and let someone else take all the other books. And I sold it for £750 the following Monday. And it was just the money I needed to pay my rent.
Oh, brilliant.
So it's also been a very important book for that reason.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason it stuck with you. Well, thank you so much, Nick. That's been really great to hear about all your experiences, and yeah, thank you for taking part in this interview series.
Well, thank you for asking me.